He's just a little
transition.
It's okay.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the special live stream where we have Chaitanya Kochhar from Riot Games. Hello, welcome to the stream. How are you doing today?
I'm well. I'm getting used to being live on the internet. It's not something I do very often.
We got a couple people in chat. Hello, Absin, Snow Queen Razor. Welcome, guys. I'm glad you all are here. Today, Chaitanya is going to be talking about software development and his career in the gaming industry. And we're going to probably do some questions about every, 15 minutes or in 15-minute increments or so. And so if you guys got a question, please go ahead and put it in the chat. And then Abson's going to gather your questions for us to talk about and everything. So, yeah, I guess I'm ready to jump into it if you are. If you want to go ahead and just talk about...
Just one small question. Which Discord channel do I have to look at for the questions?
Oh, let me go ahead and give you access to that. I'll go ahead and pull that in. I should have thought about it. I was like, well, and then, yeah, okay. So just hold on a sec. I can add member role. Let me go ahead and put you in here. There we go. Put this in here and done. And you should be able to read the permissions. I'm so silly for not thinking about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, let me go ahead and...
That's okay.
All right. Let me get all this together. It wouldn't be a live stream if I just wasn't prepared, All right, you should be able to see a channel says questions catalog in there. So hopefully you'll see that now.
Huh? Let's see.
This questions catalog. Yeah.
New mentions. I see Twitch announcements, updates.
It's in toward the...
Yeah. GOTG back offices. Beautiful.
Yeah, and then there should be a questions catalog. Do you see that?
I do.
Cool. Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, cool. Well, I guess go ahead and introduce yourself. Talk a little bit about your career, how you got started. Just kind of go through the Google Doc like we have up here. So take it away.
Revealing behind the scenes secrets, man. Yeah, so well, I would say 90% or more people of the industry, I started as somebody who really loved games, and I grew up in a small town in India, and India's small towns generally have more people than big towns in America, but it was a small town. Growing up, we had eating fast food, there was no McDonald's. We had a Domino's, and that was cool, That's how small we're talking.
Oh, wow.
And, I think both my brother and I had, we loved computers. We had big dreams about wanting to write software for fancy companies someday. That was a dream we sort of saw together. And I think I was... the first video game I really saw was this game called Doom, written by the almighty John Carmack and id Software. There are a lot of stalwarts who inspired me along the way, and without them, I wouldn't be here. And I feel like life really came to a head when I went to GDC and I met John Romero, who's sort of one of the greatest level designers in the world. And I have a picture. My picture on LinkedIn is actually me standing next to him. So
oh, wow. Very cool.
You can't see him because it's face cropped. It's
yeah.
But that picture is really special. I think for the longest time it was my Facebook display picture. I don't do that Facebook display picture thing anymore. But yeah. So the thing about growing up in India is that you don't really have access to a lot of technology, and people tend to look down upon the more sort of creative industries like gaming and whatnot. They think that video games are a waste of time and therefore delinquents.
Yeah.
So it's been a fun uphill battle. It's been interesting because when I came to the US to check out graduate schools, my brother went to a really nice graduate school. So when I went there, When I visited his graduate school, they had a gaming department,
Oh wow, very
and
cool.
yeah, I mean it's a really well-known school. But I and one of my things was, okay, I need to go and see this place. And there was a beautiful saying on the wall that said, "Brick walls are there to keep out those who don't try hard enough," or
Hmm.
something along those lines. So I think the underlying theme, I would say, of the last 30 years of my life has been, if you don't have something that you want, you're just not trying hard enough. It's never been about what is possible and what is not possible. It's about how hard are you willing to try. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really the narrative I want to sell to people is, I came from nothing. Like, even my dad towards the end of his career was incredibly successful, still
Mm.
is. But even he started off as somebody who had, like, through college he had two pairs of trousers. So there's a
Wow.
lot of hard work brings you a lot of success. But I think I'm lucky where I've graduated past understanding that, and it's now reached a point where you have to develop self-awareness, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to work more intelligently so that you can grow and hone yourself in a more sort of, you know, well thought out way,
Yeah,
because hard
definitely.
work leads to growth. Hard work sort of implies the growth happens because you're working hard. But when you
Mm-hmm.
work with a plan and with a mission,
Yeah.
the dividends are a lot more that you can predict what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You can plan, and you can set far more ambitious targets that way. Like, if I say, hey, I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 50,
Mm-hmm.
and you just go to work every day and bust your ass and make stuff happen for yourself,
Right. Yeah.
that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say, I want to be a millionaire by 50, and you set targets for yourself every
Mm-hmm.
year, that, okay, this year I want to have so many investments, and this is the kind of corporation I want to work with,
Yeah.
that really helps enrich your experience and your rewards.
Yeah.
So I think for me, life has been nothing short of all of these things just condensed into the last 10 years, because still,
Yeah.
like, 20 we're all the same.
Yeah.
Like, we go to college, we get our hearts broken,
Yeah.
we watch lots of television, we eat lots of fast food, and we drink lots of soda and party and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
I think
anyway.
it's definitely true. A lot of people have like dreams and stuff, and yet they seem to kind of get, sort of sidetracked a little bit, when they get like very goal focused, and then they just sort of like lose focus of their goals. And someone who's tries to be goal focused myself, I kind of like can understand that you kind of have to just
Mm.
keep yourself like on the target. Like, this is what I feel like I'm made to do and I should do and what I enjoy doing. And I could see that always being, I think it's a struggle for a lot of people to feel like that you're just like, oh man, I'm not where I want to be, but like, yeah, everybody's lives is different and stuff. So I think also sometimes like
Mm-hmm.
the pressure from other people, like you see other people's successes and it kind of like affects you. I'm
Mm.
like, oh man, why am I not that, successful?
Correct.
So like, for someone who feels like that, like what would you kind of like tell them to, when they feel like they're not as successful as someone else, or they get into comparing themselves? What kind of advice would you give them for that kind of a thing?
I was, again, I like to, in the interest of keeping this live stream a little relevant, I felt like I was pontificating and talking a little too much in the abstract.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to try and keep things more sort of grounded in
Yeah, yeah, no, it's
examples.
good. It's good stuff.
But
It's good stuff.
if I understand your question is, how does somebody sort of not feel like they have that, is basically like a form of FOMO, right? Like, you're missing out on all the wonderful things that everyone else is getting, and they're
Yeah.
growing and they're succeeding. And how does one refrain from comparing themselves to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Well, um, you just don't do it. That's a habit you have to consciously cultivate.
Gotcha.
So I'll tell you a fun story from college. Okay, so I went to, I think, one of the best universities in India. I mean, that's not me speaking. That's not me. It's not me humble bragging, but I genuinely think I went to a really good school, and I look at that more as a privilege than as entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
So in that school, I met a lot of brilliant people, and I was part of this student chapter thingy
Mm-hmm.
where we would just like pretend to be smarter than everybody else, or at least I did, and it was great. It was great fun.
I
So
bet.
I remember we were interviewing somebody, and I asked him, "What was your definition of excellence?"
Mm.
And he said, "To be better than everybody else." Then my counter question to him was, "What if you're doing something nobody else has done?"
Mm.
That metric falls flat on its face. So you just have to look at yourself every day and be like, "Am I getting better? Where am I
Mm-hmm.
lagging behind?
Mm.
What are my personal goals?" And this is again where I talk about, if you want to achieve something, even if it's something abstract,
Sure.
like I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 50.
Sure.
Can you draw a line from where you are to that target, and can you make lots of cuts in it to be like, okay, this is where I want to do this much, this is where I want to do this much. Even if your plan is complete nonsense, it's
Mm-hmm.
still good to have.
Mm-hmm.
So and also, to sort of pivot back into my journey in video games, there were these inciting incidents, the hero's journey. So I remember vividly, like again, when you grow up in India, there's no technology. Like
Mm-hmm.
internet was dial up. Like I grew up with dial up
Oh
internet,
yeah, I remember that.
and I'm not that old.
Yeah.
So India technology was a solid 10 years behind till about like 5 years ago. Now it's finally caught up. So my cousin came from the States, and he had a Game Boy Color, and that was like alien technology, man. And like,
Mm-hmm.
and he had Pokemon Silver, and I looked at them like, what?
Mm-hmm.
They've managed to squeeze this entire like universe
Mm-hmm.
into something the size of a. There are boxes of cigarettes that are bigger
Yeah.
than a game cart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I was like, seriously? And then, seeing Doom run on a computer for the first time, like, I want that in my life. Like, how can I make that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, you stumble upon information like, okay, these things are called programs, and somebody wrote them on a
Yeah,
computer. And,
for
and
sure.
again, when you fight stuff like video games are for delinquents, it should strengthen your resolve. Opposition should always strengthen your resolve to achieve something, not be like, oh, well, I tried.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, a good example of this is growing up. My, I think, like all families, my family was apprehensive of buying me video games,
Mm-hmm.
particularly like I wanted a Game Boy Advance, but my
Mm-hmm.
grades weren't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh, you have a Game Boy Color. What do you need a new one for?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but they don't make any games for this anymore."
Gotcha.
So
Interesting.
what ended up happening was I sort of that's when I discovered the power of the internet, and I was using like slow as dial-up internet, and
Yeah.
I started digging through. I discovered what emulators were, and
Yeah,
that
emulators are so
sort
fun.
of
Yeah.
yeah, and that was my first experience of, hey, if I use my head, I can get what I want. If I work towards it, I can get what I want. It's not always just about money. It's
Mm.
not always about good grades. It's about it's about that sense of accomplishment that you
Yeah.
wanted to do something and you found a way to do it. And these small victories are really important to capture.
Yeah,
And later
definitely.
on, I feel like once we delve into what it's like to work in the industry, and
Sure.
like right now, a lot of corporations adopt this system called SMART, where
Okay.
you take a goal
Mm-hmm.
and you check whether it's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, one of my goals is to be a better software engineer. So how am I going to achieve that? What are the smart parameters for it? Like
Mm-hmm.
specific. Being a good software engineer is a vague goal. But
Mm-hmm.
that's what you call an intrinsic goal. That's like how that's that's my feeling. That's how that's what I want to imbibe at like an abstract level.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's specific. So I want to learn Unity and C Sharp.
Nice.
Is it specific? What is M? Let me look this up. So smart goals.
Hello, Misa. Welcome to stream. We're just kind of about a couple minutes in here, 19 minutes in or so. Just general some talking about. I hope you're well. Thanks for being here. We also do
Oh,
have a one question that I want to,
measurable.
yeah.
Yes.
When we get to a good point, there's Razor Silk asked
Yeah.
the question of what do all software engineers do?
They software engineer. Just like potatoes potate and haters hate, we software engineer. But I will answer that question. So smart goals are specific, measurable. Uh, what does the SMART acronym stand for? God. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So if I say I want to be a good software engineer,
Mm-hmm.
that's my intrinsic goal. Specific, I want to learn Unity C Sharp. Measurable, I want to complete so many certifications, or I want to build this project. I want to
Mm.
build a clone, say Super Mario Brothers. Is it achievable? Yes, because I'm willing to work hard.
Mm-hmm.
And how is it achievable? I will, pick up a certification program and study. Is it relevant? Is it helping me fulfill the intrinsic goal, which is I want to be a better software engineer?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Or your intrinsic goal could be I want to be a game developer.
Mm-hmm.
Time bound, yes, I want to do it within the next year. So there are a
Yeah.
lot of these nifty little tools that good leaders and good mentors introduce you to, which help you calibrate your growth.
Yeah.
Okay,
I can see that.
so like along the way, I feel like there was a lot of serendipity. There was a lot of like good
Mm.
things happened when they needed to. But now I've reached a point where when you're truly in charge of your destiny, it's very scary because
Yes.
if you mess it up, it's on you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay.
Septicon asks in chat. I think we'll go ahead and do like a little question thing here. What is his degree exactly? Computer science, perhaps?
Okay, so let's go one by one. Um, what all
Yeah.
do software engineers do? So, um, the thing is that you aren't a software engineer because you do something and that makes you a software engineer. You
Mm.
do something and it makes you a designer. You do something, it makes you an engineering manager. You do something, it makes you a great human being.
Mm-hmm.
So your actions always speak louder than your words. Like I
Yes.
could call myself president of Galaxy 331, but that's just meaningless.
Uh-huh.
If there is a Galaxy 331 and they acknowledge me as president, that's a different thing. Then I am the president.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing. Um, but I know lots of people, like my master's degree, this to allude to the second question a little bit. I did a master's in game design only to discover that I'm a terrible designer, but I have design inclinations. Like I am sensitive to what helps facilitate good design,
Mm-hmm.
but I cannot sit and come up with fantastical universes or mind blowing new concepts that going to revolutionize. Like I'm not a Steve Jobs,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm somebody who loves to work with someone like a Steve Jobs and be like, okay, you tell me what crazy stuff you want to make, and I'll find a way to do it. That's all. That has always been my calling. So
Mm.
for me, at least within the realm of the creative technologies,
Mm-hmm.
um, a software engineer is somebody who helps facilitate the dreams of the creative person they work with.
Okay.
And I feel like there's a toxic trend in a lot of places. Like I have seen this. I'm not saying it's corporation wide or it's worldwide or whatever, but very often uh, everybody feels beholden to the software engineer. It's like when you go to the car shop, you are beholden to the mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
That works. That's okay when you're getting a car service, but it's not okay when you're redefining the future of an industry or you want
Mm-hmm.
to achieve something beautiful and ambitious. So, a good software engineer is somebody who does whatever it takes to preserve the brilliant ideas of the creative people they work with. So if a designer comes up with this beautiful cell shaded 5v5 game
Mm-hmm.
where millions of people can play versus each other and not have to deal with the mod work, playing locally.
Mm-hmm.
That's how League of Legends was born. Like uh, Brandon Beck and Mark Mellor had this vision, and then they found people who are willing to execute that,
Mm-hmm.
no questions asked,
Mm.
or they were committed to delivering the quality that visionaries sort of have.
Nice.
And generally, you become a visionary by being someone who enables a visionary,
Mm.
or maybe you have a talent for it.
Yeah.
So I've always found myself sitting on the enabling side. And as far as my degree is concerned, I have a bachelor's in computer science, um, and that is fantastic if you want to get a job
Yeah.
and if you want to make money and if you want to lead an easy life.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing pays better than a good software engineering job. It's one of the most secure futures you can have today. It's
Wow.
why so many people are pivoting out of things that they studied, like anthropology. I they on LinkedIn, I've seen a profile of this person who's an anthropologist, and she
Mm-hmm.
pivoted out of anthropology to study product design.
Mm.
So now she's going to design websites,
Nice.
because by virtue of how high impact software engineering is today, you could be passionate about literally anything and
Mm-hmm.
find a way to express it through technology,
Mm.
because technology is the easiest way to reach millions of people.
Mm.
Like
Interesting.
back in the day, if you wanted to tell people about what was happening in, so I forget, the Crimean War, which happened in Europe many years ago. Um, that war, nobody really knows why it happened, but Florence Nightingale was a byproduct of that war. War photography was a byproduct of that war. War journalism was
Mm.
a byproduct of that war. Now, in today's time,
Mm-hmm.
suppose an inciting incident of some kind happens. Technology will help you dispense that information in the most innovative and the most effective way across the world. Like the problem today is that social media is so potent, is so powerful.
Yes.
For all the good it's doing, it's also being weaponized.
Yeah.
It's also damaging society. But at the same time, it's waking us up. So it is essentially, it can be an instrument of reality, it can be an
Mm-hmm.
instrument of falsehood. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's why you have to really consume technology with a lot of responsibility.
Yes,
But
definitely.
long story short, there was a journalist out there who was a little tech savvy, and they became the first sort of, that was the inception of social media, is now any of you can be a journalist.
Yeah.
There was a time where only Steven Spielberg had could have a microphone like Grid, but
Yeah.
now everybody has one. Everybody can just go onto Amazon and buy it,
Yeah,
and that
absolutely.
is the beauty of technology. So it doesn't really matter what degree you study. It doesn't really matter what passion you have. It's about the skills. So if you're a
Mm-hmm.
creative person, you can take that you can take those skills,
Mm-hmm.
use technology to make them available to the whole world.
Yeah,
if you're a
definitely.
comedian if you're a comedian, you can take your material, chop it up and put it onto the internet, and voila, you have 10 million followers, and
Yeah.
you've gone from being a nobody who slept in his car to selling out shows.
Right.
So
Yeah, it
I think this
it
I
definitely
think
mind. It definitely, I can, when you're talking about using technology and stuff, I remember a couple years ago when I started, like, I tell people I start with a Lego set and a webcam, literally. And, and years later, it sprouted out to what we're doing, now. So yeah, it's definitely amazing to see how technology has propelled a lot of people's careers, for sure. So yeah. Uh, let's see. How are we doing here? All right. Let's see. There is a question in chat here if you want to answer it. Septicon had asked if you, what about a computer engineer? Septicon, do you mean like pursuing a computer engineer degree, or what do you mean by that question? Also, Sharon, welcome. While we wait for Septicon to answer, I want to take a bit of a small break. You had some cool stuff you wanted to show
Mm-hmm.
us. Some cool
So
Riot
in
swag.
to make well, the first thing I'm going to start off is not with Riot Swag. So in between working at gaming companies, I had the opportunity to work at an automotive company,
Oh yes.
and
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
worked on. I think I don't know if I'm ever gonna. It's if that's ever gonna happen again. But I was doing research and development for an automotive company, specifically in the UI UX, like what will cars feel like. We
Sure.
are trying to build a car for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Can we outdo Tesla? Those were the kinds
Yeah.
of ambitions we were harboring, and it was a beautiful. It lasted for a year and a half, and it was fantastic. And
Yeah.
I think I met one of the most inspiring people in the world when
Really.
I worked there. Like my boss, no one like him, and the amount of confidence I have now in
Mm-hmm.
life because of him is just it's like unparalleled. So, but this is again why working with designers and enabling them is super special, because when you work with a really talented designer, they will take a benign and lame title like Unity developer and turn it into this.
Oh wow.
Oh wait, I'm not going to the shit. That's probably going to got my phone number on it.
Ooh.
But my title at Byton was UX Creative Technologist, and I
Ah.
have never felt so cool in my life. Like you could literally have called me Batman, and it would have been less cool. So I feel
Very
like
cool.
when you work with people who are creative and
Mm-hmm.
exceptionally gifted, they will turn something simple into they will turn something ordinary into something beautiful, and that's really the essence of beautiful design. And one of my like last prized possessions is this little Byton badge, which
Mm-hmm.
I wore on my coat when I went to CES, and
Very
it was
cool.
really exciting.
Very nice.
And because this is because this is gaming, Riot sent us a care package for during COVID to tell us that we support you and we know you're working hard.
My turn.
They gave us a hat. They gave us a
Wow.
hat with the
Valorant
Valorant
logo.
logo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very cool.
I I am I'm not fond of wearing hats because they just make my head feel claustrophobic, if that's a thing.
Yeah. No, I understand.
So this is why I'm not wearing this, but I had every intention of wearing it. So instead, I'm just wearing a shirt that kind of reps the Riot colors.
Gotcha. Very cool. Let's see here. How did you get into? So, how do you go from working at a car company, like an automotive, to getting into like game design stuff? Like that seems like such a like jump, like sort of. And to me, it seems like an extreme jump in careers. But how do you transition from automotive to creative gaming space like that?
Well, the truth is that it's more about the skills that you have, and it's about applying those skills in unconventional domains.
Mm.
I didn't apply gaming technology to cars. Someone thought it would be a fantastic way to solve problems that existed in the automotive space, and they decided that someone like me was required. So,
Okay.
and I love cars. It's after video games, a close second are cars.
Gotcha.
So it was really the perfect opportunity, and this is why it's important to be relevant on social media. It's important to, you know, present your profile in the best possible way to highlight what you are good at in an understandable and saleable way,
Mm.
so that when such funky opportunities surface, it's totally it's literally the opportunity of a lifetime. So one thing that I definitely that I'm very grateful for is that after I got done working at Byton, the work was cool enough or interesting enough for Riot to take me seriously.
Oh wow.
And because of that work, one of the most awesome opportunities that has come my way, which I had to decline because I'm looking for something specific in my career right now,
Mm-hmm.
is someone who wants to sort of revolutionize the way helicopters are flown
Mm.
in terms of user experience. Like, can we make helicopters safer? Because your
Yeah.
cell phone is the most scrutinized piece of hardware in the world. The amount of effort that goes into designing something beautiful for your cell phone
Mm-hmm.
is pervading like all verticals
Yeah.
in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, this person who started an aviation company thought, hey, can we take those same principles and just apply them to helicopters? They're like, hey, we need a good Unity engineer.
Mm-hmm.
This guy seems to have a solid profile. Let me call him. And
Oh.
then, when you're good, you have the opportunity to do good.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, listen, I can't work with you because I've already committed to something,
Mm-hmm.
but I will put you in touch with people who have similar skills.
Mm-hmm.
So even if somebody, so the rising tide raises all boats. You have to think like that. You have to adopt that mentality,
Mm-hmm.
because then, and that person was so grateful. He was like, oh wow, thank you for helping me. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, listen, and he's like, can I repay this favor? I'm like, yeah, when I'm out of work, promise to interview me.
Yeah.
So there's a when you're good, or when you're capable, or when someone recognizes you as capable,
Mm-hmm.
you have the opportunity to, you know, impact people's lives in a positive way. And
Yeah.
again, if you come back to what I think a good software engineer is, at least in the universe of gaming, they're somebody who brings joy to the people who play the games or to consume the media that they're working on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, support your designers and make sure the people who customer is king.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Riot's motto right now is, we want to be the most player focused company in the world.
Gotcha.
And everybody, that is something that we are told very explicitly when we are interviewed,
Mm.
after we are hired, when we are asked about, when we are like put through employee orientation.
Mm-hmm.
Being player focused, being
Mm-hmm.
user focused,
Yeah.
I feel like those things come naturally to me. Like, I wouldn't want to make anything unless it serviced those causes.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest faux pas a young designer can make, is they think they're making something that they should like.
Yeah.
That's cool if you're doing something groundbreaking, if you're doing
Mm-hmm.
something new.
Yeah.
But your first step should always be, what will my consumer like? Even
Yeah.
if you have a crazy idea,
Mm-hmm.
like, I want to build a flying car with a touchscreen on the underbelly or something, your immediate next question should be, how can I make this a beautiful experience for the people who are consuming
Right.
this?
Yeah. Because usability for anything is always like first, and it should be like first and foremost the most important thing that people work on. Because
Yeah, yeah,
I like software. Like if I'm talking about like sound software, I like software that's very usable. That no matter where I am, the software, I always know what's going on. It most times it has a really nice, rich experience and stuff. And then when there's like these little quirks and things like, this isn't like usable. This doesn't feel right. Like it should just feel like everything just kind of flows and snaps together when I, see software or want to work on something.
mm-hmm.
So
Agreed.
very cool. Um,
So
Septicon asked here, he asked the question, so soft skills and hard skills are the things that you would recommend working on then?
Well, we will address that question specifically when we do our section on it.
Cool. Awesome.
So good. So good. You're thinking correctly about. So anyway, the next thing I want to do is just I want to like nerd out about some video games
All right.
and uh, and
Sounds fun. Yeah.
and talk about the games that really sort of made me happy
Okay.
and made me think you can do that with a computer.
Yeah. Definitely. Let's go ahead and talk about that. That'd be great.
So is there a way I can share my screen?
You should be
Oh,
able.
I okay, good. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up and I'm going to start this again with a little bit of abstract stuff.
Okay.
This I read this article.
Oh, this should be fun. I'll have to figure out how to crop this into the.
No. Even if I'm just going to like um, this was I would say when I read this before I went to gaming school in America, and it was possibly one of the most beautiful things I've ever read in my life.
Mm.
Uh, the article is called "Can a Computer Make You Cry?" And EA is a company people have varying opinions on these days. I have my own opinion, which I'm not going to discuss because
Yeah.
it's
Don't worry about
outside the scope.
it.
It's outside the scope of this
Yeah.
conversation. But when EA was founded, they wrote an article which was essentially their mission statement, which was called "Can a Computer Make You Cry?"
Gotcha.
And yeah, there's till now. So that's where sort of the idea of the name of the company is Electronic Arts.
Mm-hmm.
And the founder of the company coined this term called electronic artists.
Hmm.
So this is a part of the article. In short, we are finding that the computer can be more than just a processor of data. It is a communications medium, an interactive tool that can bring people's thoughts and feelings closer together, perhaps closer than ever before.
Hmm.
And while 50 years ago its creation may seem no more important than the advent of motion pictures or television, there is a chance it will mean something more.
Hmm.
Something along the lines of a universal language of ideas and emotions. Something like a smile. The first publication of Electronic Arts are now available. We suspect you'll be hearing a lot about them. Some of them are games like you've never seen before, that get more out of your computer than other games ever have. Others are harder to categorize, and
Hmm.
we like that. We're providing a special environment for talented, independent software artists. It is a supportive environment in which big ideas are given room to grow, and some of America's most respected software artists are beginning to take notice. We think our current work reflects this very special commitment. And though we are few in number today, and apart from the mainstream of the mass software marketplace, we are confident that both our time and vision are on our side. Join us. We see
Hmm.
farther.
Very cool.
So it's we learn, for instance, that we are more entertained by the involvement of our imaginations than by passive viewing or listening. That line should give you goosebumps
Mm-hmm.
because that is the essence of a video game.
Mm-hmm.
We are more entertained by the involvement of our imaginations than by passive viewing or listening.
Mm-hmm.
We learn that we are better taught by experiences than by memorization. And we
Mm-hmm.
learn that the traditional distractions, the ones that are made between art and entertainment and education, don't always apply.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty cool.
look
Definitely.
this up, read it. If you ever want to sort of understand the profound dimension of video games and why I think the what the medium has accomplished in the last 60 years, not 60, 40 years, let's say 1980 is when it started.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to sort of understand the profound dimension of what video games are capable of, this article just summarizes it so beautifully.
I've never actually played Doom. Like it wasn't one of my like my childhood game would actually be Jazz Jackrabbit. My sister and I sunk hours into that game. That is my
Yeah,
childhood game, honestly. And next to that would be playing games on miniclips.com. Like that was my like real
we've all done that.
exposure. Yeah,
Yeah,
my that was my real exposure to video
yeah.
games and stuff like that way before like I was ever a hardcore PC gamer and stuff.
Yeah. So I think what you're alluding to is that we all build our way up to a sophisticated taste or
Mm-hmm.
to any kind of sophistication in anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you saw, like I remember watching Terminator 2 on television when I was 6 years old and being terrified of it.
Yeah.
But now I realized that that sort of helped me hone my love of cheesy American action films,
Mm-hmm.
and which James Cameron is undoubtedly a master of. Uh, so classic Doom, just when we talk about the games that we like, this is what makes video games special. It's like it's so relatable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody has that one medium or that one like movie or video game that really sort of gives them like infinite happiness.
Mm-hmm.
For some, that's World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
For some, that's classic Doom. For some, it could even be you go all the way back to your LucasArts point and click adventures. So I love to ask people this question, like even at work. When I was like getting to know everybody, the first thing I would ask them is, what is your relationship with the medium? Because it's such a great way to establish a relationship. So if you're somebody who's out there and you want to break into the industry as whatever your craft is,
Mm-hmm.
see if you can talk to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly, like LinkedIn is awesome.
It really
You
is,
could
yeah.
you could reach out and talk to this person who created the video game that you love,
Mm-hmm.
and that person might actually engage with you. So Tom Hall was one of the creators of Doom. He was the guy who wrote the design document for Doom.
Oh wow.
I have hung out with him at a party,
Oh
and just
wow.
like, and he's like one of those guys who likes doing cartoon voices. So
Really?
he did Marvin the Martian's voice for me, and it was surreal.
Very cool.
And so if you have, like, it's important for you to have a hero and see if you can talk to that hero, see if you can
Mm-hmm.
get in touch with them, see if you can, like, you know ask them about what makes them tick. Like
Yeah.
when I met John Romero, he was like, yeah, I know Will Wright. Will Wright is the creator of The Sims.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, Will Wright is a really quiet, really fun guy, and I know he was at my wedding.
Wow.
So it's very important to understand that the people who make the stuff that you love are also human. So
Yeah.
it's not a good idea to put them on a pedestal, but it's a fantastic idea to revere them for their capability and their
Mm-hmm.
craft.
Yeah,
So
I could
yeah,
definitely
carry on.
I could definitely attest that because there's been some times and I mean I was even like talking to you, I was like, oh my gosh, Chaitanya from like Riot wants to like do this stream with me, like, and I was just like, I am not like worthy of this. And yeah, I realized in the day, we're all working professionals. We all have our industry that we work in. And I've, talked to people, like I was enjoying conversation with, he's the music producer, right? It's Sebastian Najad or Najand. We were talking about music stuff where I've talked to, the Adam T. Croft, who's the dialogue lead at Bungie. They're just all like these, normal everyday people who just happen to create the games that we all love and enjoy, and that's a
Mhm,
really cool
mhm.
opportunity.
Hmm. One of my roommates from graduate school, kid who grew up in Orlando, he was a part of the Geek Squad at Best Buy.
Oh man.
Like that's one of the things I remember about him. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was in recent history. This is like less than 5 years ago. He's now rocking a design position at Bungie, which is
Oh
and
wow.
he grew up loving Halo. Like Halo was
Oh
his jam.
yeah.
I think he had like a bust of the Master Chief.
Oh wow.
Maybe I'm misremembering, but he's one of those fans. Like
Oh man.
he's that in love with the franchise.
Yeah,
And now he works at Bungie.
that's cool.
And like his journey is very inspiring. Like I've he worked on Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, which is a
Oh
mobile game.
wow.
Then he worked on Madden Mobile, and then he gradually worked his way up to working at Bungie. So
That's
this is
cool.
again, you don't necessarily have to start where you want to finish. That's why it's
Mm.
called the finish.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's just a milestone. Maybe it's just you can only see as far as your first milestone. Like I never thought in my wildest dreams that I'd work at Riot. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're focused on doing a good job
Yeah.
and you're good at what you do, people will
Mm-hmm.
recognize that. And that's the good thing about well-established organizations. What makes them successful is they can identify talent more effectively and use it more effectively than organizations that are not as successful.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's very hard not to uh, not to be like unintentionally mean, but the
Mm-hmm.
truth is that excellence is is like finding good talent and then keeping it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people who work with me at Riot have been with Riot for the lifetime of the organization. I have
Wow.
never worked at a software company where I have worked with someone who has been there since day one. Like
Wow.
that's a testament to how loyal the people who work at Riot, who work with Riot, who work at Riot are. Is
Yeah.
that they really respect and they love what they've done, and Riot has supported them in their own
Mm-hmm.
way. So that is what makes a good corporation special, is that
Yeah.
they are able to attract talent
Mm-hmm.
and they're able to retain it.
Gotcha.
So anyway, quickly, the games that sort of changed my life. Doom. I love racing games, and the first career racing game I played was like Need for Speed 4.
Oh,
It was
okay.
so
Very
good.
nice.
Like you had a career mode, and you could buy a car, and
Yeah.
you could upgrade it. So that sense of fantasy really
Mm-hmm.
sort of came through.
Yeah.
And I think games like Forza,
Yes.
it's that
Forza, such
same,
a good game.
it's that same nugget of get a car, make it your own, and win like a million races with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Forza still does the same thing, only it does it in higher graphics.
Yeah. One of my
And
favorite things to do in Forza is I love designing like the cars because you can download people's custom decals, and I've spent like
yeah,
whole streams just designing cars just because it's so fun to just create something that's aesthetically
yeah,
pleasing to
yeah,
me, and it's like I
yeah.
get to race this now. It's such a good game.
Well, I am the exact opposite. I
Really.
am somebody who likes to keep his car looking as stock as possible.
Ah,
Like I
okay.
will not put a sticker on my car. No. I'm
Nice.
like,
Okay.
the car comes in 4 colors, fantastic. I will pick one of those four. I don't want to put a bulldog or a bull
Yeah, I
or a
understand that.
buffalo or
Yeah.
anything on my car. No.
Yeah.
It's just got to be mint. And I love that.
Gotcha.
But the fact that they give you this canvas of
Mm-hmm.
expression is just, it's like it's the same idea
Mm-hmm.
that this is mine. But
Mm-hmm.
everybody's sense of identity and ownership is so different.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's again, it's what makes a good video game great, is
Yeah.
you can create a relationship with it.
Yeah,
It's like
definitely.
it's essentially what Apple and Google do, is that you cannot quit their products
Mm-hmm.
because you've created a relationship with them. Your iPhone is your lifeline. It's what you use for all your work.
Yep, Definitely.
and it has your right down from your, it has your payroll information, it has your the photos of your family,
Mm-hmm.
that cool recipe you want to try. So that
Yeah.
sense of personalization,
Mm-hmm.
like I used to think it was nonsense, but now as I've grown older, I've discovered that these little things are
Mm-hmm.
what help you help you differentiate
Yeah.
yourself.
Definitely.
It's like when you interview when you join Riot and you do your orientation,
Mm-hmm.
you get to speak with the founders. And my question to them
Wow.
was, how did you sell a video game with no microtransactions before games as a service were a thing? Like you were the first people to do it.
Uh-huh.
They were like, yeah, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy trying to convince investors that we want to make a game that nobody's going to pay for, and we are going to make money playing dress up. Like
Yeah. Yeah. I've
nobody.
sunk a bit into League. I'll admit that a little bit.
Yeah, but see, the reason you come is because it's a good game. The
Yeah.
reason you stay is because you're having fun.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason we make money is because we give you the opportunity to make this product your own.
Mm-hmm.
Like we allow you to dress up your characters the way you want to dress them up. It's
Mm-hmm.
why Smash Brothers is such a huge hit. It's
Yes.
effectively buying action figures from every single game that you like
Yeah.
and go tsh, 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 tsh
Mm-hmm.
with them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So uh it's like I'm rubbish at Smash Brothers. I don't like it. I'm rubbish at
I'm not
League.
that good. Don't feel bad. I'm not that good either. There's a couple people in my
So
chat that are good at it, though. I can tell you that.
I'm like absolutely rubbish at League, but
I
I have to admire how like how much quality. It's actually when you interview at Riot, there's like a rubric about, they like try to, every role has some kind of there is a measure about what kind of relationship you would like to have with the video games, with video games.
mm-hmm.
So essentially that boils down to, they ask you, what do you know about Riot, what is your relationship with games?
Mm-hmm.
And my answer to that was, okay, the actual question is, why do you want to work with Riot? But
Mm-hmm.
what they're looking to measure with that is your relationship with games and the games industry.
Mm-hmm.
So my answer to that question was, I like Riot, even though I'm like, I will not play the games because I'm a single player gamer.
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys deliver phenomenal quality,
Yeah.
and it's no joke to retain 100 million players. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a, it's like League is currently the most played video game in the world.
Wow.
That's not an accident.
Yeah.
It's special, but it's a one-time thing, and it's probably very hard to, you know, do that again.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's accidental. They did a lot of good work.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, if a game is fun, you'll keep playing it. And then
Mm-hmm.
within yourself, you'll be like, hey, it's a good idea for me to support the people who have made this. Let me drop $5 on a skin.
Yeah.
Let me, and if you play it, let me like, if I want to play competitively, let me sing some. Can you buy runes? Like, this is how out of date I am.
You can buy rune pages, which I have. I've used Blue Essence to get rune pages, but you can definitely spend money, like actual money, if you wanted
Yeah.
to.
So what we're doing, it's a very difficult problem to solve, is how can you make people love your game enough where they will spend money in it without distinctly getting an advantage. In fact, uh, something that both the founders spoke about was, there was a lot of pressure to make League pay to win
Wow.
because Asian games, the games coming out of China and Japan and
Mm-hmm.
Korea. I'm not sure. Okay, I can definitely speak to China because I've seen games on Steam that are made by Chinese game developers,
Mm-hmm.
which are fantastic. But it is looked at as a mark of respect that you are winning because you have put more money into this game. So
Really?
it's very odd how perceptions vary. Like in some countries, like in America, if you're winning because you paid more money, that's looked at as heinous and horrible and unethical. But in China, it's like cool. I don't.
Interesting.
I'm not able to spend so much money on my game, but you can.
Mm-hmm.
So you deserve to win because
Hmm.
you've obviously worked harder in life or whatever. This is I don't want to get into
Yeah, no, no,
social
no, for sure.
the intricacies of society, but it's genuinely something that happens over there. So there
Hmm.
was a lot of pressure to make league that way, but they said no, and that's why. But it's so special, right? Because now league is huge in China. It's like one of
Yeah.
the biggest games in China.
Especially because of
Isn't
the
Tencent?
Yeah, especially because of the esports scene, because you have,
Oh
LEC,
yeah,
LPL, LCK, LCS, those are huge. And
yeah,
I love watching, I actually like
yeah,
watching LEC because it's just, well, first of all, the commentaries are really interesting to listen to because their accents are refreshing, but just the gameplay is just so interesting and
yeah.
how the decisions, yeah, it's like Riot wouldn't have, I think Riot would have been less successful if it was a pay to win versus a skill based game, honestly. So yeah, I can definitely understand that
Well,
it worked
nobody
well.
knows. Nobody knows what would have happened. We just know what happened.
Hmm.
I'm strictly against speculation
Oh, of
because
course. Yeah,
this
that's no problem.
this is like a life lesson. No, I'm not saying like with respect to Riot. I'm just saying in general, I'm not one for speculation
Mm.
because I feel like that lays the seeds of regret.
Yeah.
Like I have one regret in life, which is I'm not sure if I should have actually studied game development as my master's because
Mm.
I haven't seen any direct benefits from it, but I
Mm.
guess I've seen a lot of indirect benefits from it. So
Mm.
maybe if I'd just gone to like a school that done like a standard master's in computer science, my
Mm-hmm.
life would have been fine.
Mm-hmm.
But would it have been this crazy? Would it have been this exciting? Would I have
Yeah.
gotten the same opportunities? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. So like there have been several points in my life, and that's I would say that's the only regret I really have.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Interesting.
now I feel like even that I have like stopped contemplating that because it happened like 10 years ago now at this point. Like
Gotcha.
10 years should be enough time of your life to nullify any bad decision that you made with respect to. Like a bad decision can set you back, but it can never destroy you.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
maybe it'll set you back 2 years.
Yeah.
So what should have set me forward 2 years, set me back 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just have to work a little harder then.
Yeah.
And that's life.
Yeah.
Like you will make mistakes. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay. So that is why don't spin your wheels on the whole regret hamster wheel. It's really not worth it.
I agree. Getting a little bit off, we kind of spiraled a little bit. I mean, great stuff for sure. But you were talking about some of your favorite games and stuff. So, what other like games inspired you or helped along your career path here?
Uh, so I talked a little bit about emulation.
Yeah,
Um,
let's talk about some of
my
that.
my till about 2007 8, the only actually more like till 2012, the only games I could really play were old ones because I got my first gaming PC in
Mm.
2012.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the other. That's not explicitly true. I had a PS3. I got a PS3 when I was after I finished my 10th grade. It was a birthday present for doing a good job.
Nice.
So that is the only time I have gotten a gaming thing because of my grades.
Very cool.
So my grades have always been like everybody's like, oh, you can do so much better. I'm like, how do you know? Like you don't know that.
Yeah.
So but I got a PS3 when I was like in 2009,
Hmm.
and I mean, apart from that, like one of the games that really changed my life because of emulation was Final Fantasy 9.
Mm.
Um, a friend of mine lent me his Game Boy very generously, and
Hmm.
I played like Final Fantasy 1 back to front on it.
Oh, wow.
And another friend of mine from many years ago had a PlayStation 1, and he
Hmm.
told me about this series called Final Fantasy
Hmm.
and how he has the seventh game and how it has 3 discs and he has never finished it
Oh
because it's
wow.
so long.
Oh gosh.
And to me, he was like hitting all the right notes. I'm like, okay, long game means value for money. Long game also means that old game actually. Old game means I can like emulate it. I don't have to, squeeze. I don't have to like beg, borrow, steal from
Mm-hmm.
my parents to get this game.
Mm-hmm.
So I had like at that point I had figured out how to set up the PlayStation 1 emulator on our desktop. So I
Mm-hmm.
emulated Final Fantasy 9 and he was as advertised. I never finished it.
Mm.
Uh, and the only way I finished that game was recently on my Xbox after after applying the like the 999 cheat where you can like one shot enemies.
Oh
Because my god,
no.
my god, does it get grindy towards the end? But the story is just mwah. It is just a mwah
Yeah.
story.
I was really enjoying when they and I hope at some point it comes to PC, but when they did Final Fantasy VII Remake and I saw a bunch of people
Yeah,
playing it and I'm like, that looks really fun, but I don't have a PS4 right now, but I would love to play that because it looks
yeah,
so good. Yeah.
correct. So I think it's always a good idea for a person to regress and look at games that came out before. Like it's very easy to be myopic and be like, okay, Sea of Thieves, Destiny 2, Fortnite, PUBG,
Mm-hmm.
Forza,
Yeah.
Halo, Doom. It's
Mm-hmm.
very easy to ignore the wealthy legacy of video games. It's like you should always go back and watch the classic movies. I feel like these classic, you always need to sample the spectrum of video games.
Yeah.
And to that end, I'm going to flex something I bought recently.
Oh man. Oh, is this that I think you were talking a little bit on stream, but that fight stick that you got, right? Is that what that was?
Spoilers, dude.
Spoilers. Oh man. Oh man, look
So
at this. What do we
I
got?
bought I bought a
Oh
fight stick. I bought
wow.
my first fight stick yesterday, and I'm not playing like Street Fighter 5 with it. I am playing Metal Slug.
Oh.
I'm playing like Final Fight and all of these amazing things. So there's a lot of fantastic. There are a lot of fantastic developers out there who've like computers are really powerful.
Yeah, they are. And they're just getting more powerful as it goes on.
Yeah, and a lot of these very fantastic games
Uh-huh.
can be played easy peasy on like machines that are the size of a matchbox now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I would recommend anybody who's interested in game development to get like a RetroPie and build themselves a small arcade box
Oh
and
yeah. Yeah.
experience like 7 8 generations of games and really delve into sort of the history of how these games are made
Mm-hmm.
and what technology was like. And
Mm-hmm.
like there's this company called SNK and their entire business was bringing, like, they would make arcade machines
Mm-hmm.
and then they were like, okay, we are going to sell you cartridges for your arcade machines. So they had this thing called an MVS,
Mm-hmm.
and then they started selling the MVS to
Mm-hmm.
homeowners and they called it the AES.
Mm-hmm.
And this was called the their console was called the Neo Geo, and you had the Neo Geo AES which you could buy for home use, and
Mm-hmm.
the MVS which arcade owners could buy, and it was essentially a cabinet which you could put different games in.
Mm-hmm.
So they now because technology has come along so far, like that box used to cost 799 when it was new, and this is like in 1990s money.
Mm.
So this is probably like more like $1,000 now. But you can play those games on a Matchbox machine. Like you can get a
Crazy.
Raspberry Pi and play those.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend people get them to understand things like how monetization has evolved in video games.
Mm-hmm.
Like You know how everybody's complaining that, or everybody's like unhappy that games are going to be 60, $70
Mm-hmm.
this coming generation.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Cerny, who's like the creator of the PlayStation, said this. He's like, if you really think about it, games have never been cheaper because now you have $5 games, you have free games, you
Mm-hmm.
have $60 games, you have $90 games. Back in the arcade, if you wanted to play for 5 minutes, it costed you a quarter. And if you wanted to beat the game, it would probably set you back $15.
Mm.
And you could never replay the game. So
Wow.
companies like SNK, Sega, their entire value prop was that we are going to bring the arcade to your home. So the Sega Genesis was a massive hit because they were bringing arcade experiences to your home. So a game like Strider or Shinobi, which were these huge arcade hits, was suddenly available on your television.
Mm-hmm.
So now it has evolved even further where you can take an old computer and people have written like these beautiful front ends, so you can turn your television into an arcade machine and
Yeah.
it'll have a tracked mode on it and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and you can experience every single retro game ever made. And
Mm-hmm.
on top of writing like awesome softwares that let you wrangle libraries of these games,
Mm-hmm.
you can also like just they've been cataloged and archived by these like virtuous librarians. There's a website called archive.org
Mm-hmm.
which you can visit to like somebody's archived the whole Nintendo DS library.
That's
Somebody's
cool.
archived like the Game Boy Advance library.
That's
So
amazing.
I feel like if you want to get into games and if there are games that you knew as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
revisit them, understand them, like really
Yeah, definitely.
create create like a legacy relationship with the industry because it really helps you. And there are a lot of great ideas. That's why
Yeah.
remakes are so popular. There were a lot of great ideas. Like Resident Evil 2
Mm-hmm.
is at least a million times better now as a remake because they have better technology to realize their vision
Mm-hmm.
and realize what a horror game should feel like. Like
Mm-hmm.
I played Resident Evil 2. I don't have the courage to play the PlayStation 1 version because that's probably a gajillion times more terrifying because of the tank controls.
Yeah.
But playing the remake was
Mm-hmm.
so much fun
Mm-hmm.
because it has brought to life the real vision of the creator of Shinji Mikami. Shinji Mikami's real vision has been brought forth in that game.
Interesting.
So anyway,
So very cool.
uh, one last game I feel like I should mention that two games actually I want to mention. One is BioShock
Okay.
because it that was my first experience of real world building.
Mm.
Like, can you tell a story through a culture and through like artifacts of a culture?
Mm-hmm.
Like, can you? It's like you are a survivor and an archaeologist in that universe because you're literally
Mm.
digging through the rubble of this magnificent behemoth
Mm-hmm.
and realizing like it's a very beautiful story and it's told in such a unique way. It's
Mm-hmm.
like System Shock, BioShock, and now the new Prey.
Mm-hmm.
These like three games, I feel like world building was something they really did well. And I have to give a in that sort of vein, Pokemon was also really special because um it again realizes this whole world and this whole culture
Mm-hmm.
of creatures that you can train and make your pets and whatnot. It's not an accident that Pokemon is the most valuable and the
Franchise. Yeah.
highest selling gaming franchise in the world. It's
Yeah.
again because of that rich sense of personalization.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, one company that has like absolutely crushed it in terms of realizing worlds is Assassin's Creed.
Mm.
Like I was a fan of the Renaissance period, But being friends with Leonardo da Vinci was like,
Yeah. Very immersive.
so
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed 2 is was again, when I played that game, I was like, you can do this?
Yeah.
Like you can articulate a building so perfectly that you can just climb it. Like
Yeah.
there aren't these, like super conspicuous ledges. You
Mm-hmm.
actually have to read the architecture and scale it that way. Like I can climb up the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
Like I can do that. Is that allowed?
That'd be my
So,
question. Is it allowed?
well, no, maybe not in the real one, but the
Well, yeah,
Ubisoft one you
obviously.
can.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's like, and then again, as an engineer and as a gamer, that's incredibly inspiring.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll jump in a little bit here with it. Yeah, I love I appreciate really good level design. And sometimes in
Right.
some games I will just like free like if there's there like for example one day in particular, and just because it's off the top of my head here, like I've been playing Valorant, and I was like, this map is like beautiful, but like I'm so busy fighting, I haven't a chance to like appreciate this. So I've actually gone into the spectator mode, just spectator mode, and just wait for the round to start, and then just walked around just appreciating the art, the sound design, the nuances and stuff, because
Yeah.
because it's art. It's literally a form
Yeah.
of art, and somebody spent time doing that. I want to appreciate that art
Correct.
in
Correct.
detail, you know?
Um, this is precisely why Blizzard was able to charge $15 a month for World of Warcraft, because they took a chessboard and they turned it into a universe.
Mm-hmm.
They took the world from an RTS
Mm-hmm.
and turned it into Azeroth,
Mm-hmm.
which was which is still, I would say, one of the like most expansive realizations of a video game
It
universe.
really is, yeah. Like I haven't played it personally, but I've seen the in-depth,
Yeah.
like world and stuff. It's incredible. Or if you look at games like Black Desert Online, huge,
Uh-huh.
beautiful. Oh,
Oh
that
wow.
that world is gorgeous, dude. It's
Okay.
so spectacular. But
Look
I
at look
appreciate
at
that.
look at Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
Breath of
Yes.
the Wild is it you will I recommend people do this. This is, I would say, an insight into how insanely dedicated the creators of Zelda are.
Mm-hmm.
In order for them to validate whether the mechanics of Breath of the Wild will work,
Mm-hmm.
I'm 90% sure that they did this because I remember seeing a screenshot. They made that entire game in 2D
Wow.
to validate if it works before making it in 3D.
Really? That's
And
amazing.
that game, much as people say it's not Zelda
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't have your dungeons and whatnot, and it's not
Yeah.
like a Zelda. For many years, for longer than it has been otherwise, has been a linear dungeon crawl. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, go from one temple to another,
Right.
and you can go heart hunting.
Yeah, because I remember I played a Phantom Hourglass. That was a very good game on the DS. I enjoyed that
Oh,
thoroughly.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, again, this is again why emulation is super cool. Is you can go and revisit uh, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, uh, Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time,
Mm-hmm.
as they were originally made.
Mm-hmm.
And you can even like apply like filters to the screen to like get
Mm-hmm.
the original, like this is what it would have looked like on a CRT television from the 90s.
Very
So
cool.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of witchcraft people have done to make the games feel as authentic as possible.
Yep.
But anyway, so telling the story of Zelda a little bit. Um, the first game, they just put you in the middle of a forking road. Like I think it goes like four ways,
Mm-hmm.
and you just decide which direction you want to walk into.
Mm-hmm.
So, for when Shigeru Miyamoto, that man is like a genius. When he created the first Zelda, he was like, I want this to feel like when I go into the forest and collect bugs because that was one of his hobbies.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know if it was his hobby, but he definitely liked like just walking through the forests. And his initial job, actually, Shigeru Miyamoto's vocation, like we're talking about software engineers and designers,
Mm-hmm.
Shigeru Miyamoto's vocation out of college was ambient music.
Mm.
Like how do you design or how do you compose music for like a mall or a fancy restaurant?
Mm-hmm.
And if you really, I want everybody to do this as an exercise. Go and play Mario, Metroid, and Zelda. Particular, let's just stick to Mario.
Mm-hmm.
You will find rhythm based mechanics in those games. Like, there are levels where when you jump, the level changes and the music, a chime plays.
Mm-hmm.
All of those games have beautifully telegraphed audio cues.
Mm-hmm.
It's because the person who created them, in addition to being an absolute creative visionary,
Mm-hmm.
understood the value of music and
Mm-hmm.
understood how human beings consume music. That
Definitely.
is why Nintendo games have always had the best music.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I music is something that I really appreciate. Next to level design, music is something I definitely appreciate in a video game. Because it's just such a because like you were talking about audio cues. Sea of Thieves does this excellently, beautifully. Like when you're in the middle of the ocean and you hear the Megalodon music, you're like, oh, that's a Megalodon, or that's a skeleton ship, or we're by a fort. There's other
Correct.
games that do it similarly, where it's just like, oh, I need to be paying attention, and it's really great how you can do those cues and tap
Yeah.
into the conscious and subconscious of the player. It's excellent.
So, yeah. And I just think it's important for, much as modern games do it really well,
Mm-hmm.
it's important for anybody I feel who is interested in creating video games
Mm-hmm.
to revisit the roots, because none of us is going to create, like sitting in our homes alone. We're not really going to create the next Destiny,
Mm-hmm.
but we're going to create Destiny 0.1. And
Mm-hmm.
Destiny 0.1 has more in common with Zelda 0.1 than it has with Destiny 2.
Mm-hmm.
So it's much more important. It's very important for you to sort of dig through older games
Yeah.
and experience them. For example, there's a game called Bug Fables. It's called
Bug
Bug
fables.
Fables.
Okay.
And it is essentially a clone. Not really a clone, it's very heavily inspired by the original two Paper Mario games.
Mm.
So we're talking about Paper Mario 64 and A Thousand Year Door.
Hmm.
It is a phenomenal RPG, and it was made by five guys sitting at home with Unity. I
Mm.
mean, figuratively speaking, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure their team was bigger and it comprised of many, many talented people from different walks of life.
Yeah.
But the scale was very
Mm-hmm.
small. And that is why it's really important for us to sink our teeth into the classics,
Yeah.
because they will help you or make it really easy for you to know what kind of build game you can build with technology today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember when I went to GDC, someone asked John Carmack, "Do you think five people will ever be able to make Call of Duty sitting at home?" And he said no, because it's just not possible in terms of the the amount. There's some work that computers cannot do for you. And he's
Mm-hmm.
right. But at the same time, technology is becoming cheaper, so it is becoming less expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe five people cannot do it, but 25 can.
Yeah.
So, for example, Control. which I think is one of the best looking video games ever made,
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of Control's gameplay. Yeah.
was made on a budget of 30 million euros. And
Really?
despite that game not selling very much, not as much as, say, an Assassin's Creed Odyssey sells,
Mm-hmm.
they still made all their money back. And
Wow.
Microsoft has put it on Game Pass, and it was an Epic exclusive. So all that game was a profit.
Mm-hmm.
So in this day and age, if you want to break into game development, pick a game that you loved as a kid and see if you can make it.
Hmm.
It's really that simple. The resources are all available.
Yeah.
And that's why I much as we talked about a million things,
Oh yes.
I found it valuable to revisit the games that I loved, like Doom.
Mm-hmm.
Doom, I love Doom because people, you can learn everything there is to learn about level design,
Mm-hmm.
or become sufficiently like good at it
Mm-hmm.
just by spending 6 months building levels for Doom.
Mm-hmm.
You could, spend 6 weeks and clone the battle system of Pokemon. And think about, an exercise I give to software engineers when I interview them. Is I want you to take something and build it in such a way that designers can work with it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, for example, create the Pokemon battle system in Unity in such a way that nobody has to write a line of code to add Pokemon, to add moves,
Mm-hmm.
to, balance them? Can you make that system, can you make it patchable? So take a game that you loved, again, reiterating, take a game that you love, see if you can clone it.
Yeah.
And it
Definitely.
doesn't it doesn't even have to be something crazy. It doesn't even have to be something it doesn't even have to be 3D. I'd say stay away from 3D. 3D is hard. 3D
Yes.
makes things so difficult
Yes.
that people whose job was to make games, like, they still haven't figured out how to do Sonic in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Shigeru Miyamoto almost, like, he drove his team into the ground
Oh
trying to
wow.
figure out how to make Mario 64. Like, I think, like, you should read the stories about people who made the first Toy Story and people who made the first Super Mario. They almost killed themselves. Literally, I'm not
Oof.
even exaggerating. It was
Oh.
so hard.
Oh
They almost
wow.
lost their life in the process. They were so stressed and
Oh
they were so
no.
burnt out
That's
that
unfortunate.
a lot of, like, I think Super Mario 64 was the last game that Shigeru Miyamoto made. Like, he was, like, actively involved in the day-to-day making of, because I think it was so hard that even he was like, peace out, mic drop, I'm done. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you guys look after this from now on.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to do 3D. To do 3D well, oh
Mm-hmm.
my god,
Yeah.
it could kill you. So
Yeah.
if
Wow.
you're a novice, if you're just starting out, stick to 2D. So that's why, like learn how to build game systems, learn how to balance games. There's so much fun you can have.
Mm-hmm.
And
Definitely.
Grid made his own game, plug.
So, talk a little bit about like your job. So you obviously are a software developer at Riot and SDK and
Uh-huh,
stuff. So,
uh-huh.
what does that cover exactly as in your job? What exactly how does that
Okay.
work, or what do you do exactly? If you're
Okay.
allowed to talk
Before
about.
we, oh yeah. I can obviously tell you what I do. I just can't tell you about what I'm working on.
Yes. No. Don't do
Uh,
that. Don't. No. No spoilers.
but but what I'm going to do next is celebrate this, show some more swag.
Yeah.
So what should I show? Let's see. Some cool stuff here. Let's show the medals, because we just
Yes.
talked about the games. So Riot accomplished something unparalleled in the last year, where they released 3 new games. It's like
Wow.
unheard of. It's like went from 1 game to 4 games in like a year,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why we're all like, excited to hear what our leadership has to say about the performance of the company,
Mm-hmm.
because we're like, so we're
Yeah,
all quite hyped about that. In
indeed.
fact, they did something really sweet at the end of 2020, because we had a phenomenal year and everybody worked really hard. Riot has this really nice benefit called a play fund, which gives you an allowance to buy video games.
Oh, yes. I think I
So
read about that in one of
so
your job descriptions that I was looking up one time. Yeah.
yeah. And this year, because everybody has been so good and has worked through such a difficult year, they buffed our play fund to allow us to buy the next gen system. So my next gen Xbox has been paid
Wow.
for by Riot, and I'm like, oh, thank you.
That's very cool.
So, and they sent us a lot of cool things, and one of the coolest, I think the coolest thing they've sent us is badges of the games.
That's cool.
So each of them is, and they even sent us like these little stands to put them on.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I'm obviously I have to move, so I don't live in LA right now because of COVID and whatnot.
Yeah.
But once I move, I have to think of a good way to sort of, because I never like to use swag. I always like to treat it like a souvenir.
Mm-hmm.
So here's one more. Here's Teamfight Tactics,
Very cool.
and it's got the Riot badge behind it.
Very nice.
And then you have the hot kid on the block, Valorant.
Very nice.
And finally, there
Legends of Runeterra. Yeah.
the Hearthstone
Oh, the hearts.
competitor,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Legends
Sorry.
of
Yeah.
Runeterra. Riot's Hearthstone. Nah,
Yeah.
just kidding. I don't know if I should say that, but probably not. No, no, it's its own game. But I mean, granted, we are definitely inspired by a lot of the good work Blizzard
Yeah.
has done. In fact,
Yeah, definitely.
I'm very excited to see where the MMO is going to go. Because
Oh,
yeah, for
yeah.
those who
A
don't
lot of
know,
us are. Yeah.
Riot, one of the reasons I got in touch with Grid was because he posted on the Riot had made a thread on LinkedIn about the MMO that we're working on. And Grid posted on that, and I was like, yeah, you should definitely apply. And voila, we're here now. So
Mm.
this is why I am a big patron of reach out to people,
Yes.
talk to them, because it's a great way to do positive things for yourself and for everybody around you.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
Very
uh,
cool.
yes. So what was your question? What do I do at Riot?
Yes.
Okay. Um, what's a good way to explain this? This is a very so what I do is actually more sort of similar to what a software developer does at say a bank
Mm.
or or a tech company. Let's not say bank. Let's say like a tech company. So League is an old game. League is not something that happened last year.
Yeah.
So technology like matchmaking, having a client to launch your game, patching,
Mm-hmm.
all of these technologies were not, you couldn't just go and buy them off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, a lot of these technologies, for example, live data streaming,
Mm-hmm.
was something that you can now buy off the shelf. You just have to create a YouTube account and you're good. And you can do that now.
Mm-hmm.
So Riot has invested a lot of money and time into creating a lot of these technologies in-house.
Mm-hmm.
Much like how Steam has databases all over the world and it has metrics about who's playing how much,
Yeah.
achievements. So that technology did not exist for PC till Valve wrote it, and now everybody uses it. So Riot is in a unique position where they were the first people to really do games as a service, at least to my knowledge. I could be obviously completely wrong, but they were one of the first. So that technology, they want to now make it available outside of League of Legends
Mm.
to all the games that are and will be a part of the Riot ecosystem. So what we do is all of that technology and on one side you have all the games, and on the other side you have all of that technology.
Mm-hmm.
My team sits in the middle.
Mm.
We are what you call an SDK, which is a software development kit.
Mm-hmm.
What does a software development kit do? It makes it easy for you to access features that would otherwise require you to jump through many hoops, like figuring out authentication and whatnot. So,
Mm.
what's a good SDK example? Suppose you want to put Facebook into your game. Suppose you want Facebook login to be a part of the mobile game that you're working on. Like that sounds like a very difficult thing, but it's not, thanks
Mm-hmm.
to a Facebook SDK.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is you pull this code that Facebook wrote, which so code that is borrowed from somewhere else or code that is provided to you
Mm-hmm.
is generally called a library.
Mm-hmm.
So you take a library that Facebook has written,
Mm-hmm.
stick it into your pull it into your Unity project or your iOS app or your Android app, and then just in code you write something to the effect of Facebook dot login.
Mm-hmm.
Pass in the username, pass in the password, close bracket, enter, and you now have access to the Facebook. You have access to Facebook's technology.
So it's kind of like basically like having a middleware in your code that gets called when you want to access something in
That's it.
particular. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It is a middleware. So Riot has this phenomenal game-centric technology. Like we have, so one of our technologies is a player queuing service, which is game agnostic. So it works for all our games. We have one service to handle matchmaking for all our games.
Mm.
Like it's the same code, but it's been instanced for Runeterra, it's been instanced for Valorant, it's been instanced for League.
Mm-hmm.
Now we want to make this available to anybody who wants to make a multiplayer game under the Riot banner.
Mm.
So we write a little bit of software, a little bit of code that allows you to talk to that easily. Now, in order to talk to that, you also have to authenticate with the Riot servers. You have to have an account.
Right.
You have to have the ability to create an account.
Mm-hmm.
All of this magic, all of this business logic
Mm-hmm.
that lives between Riot's web technology and games
Mm-hmm.
is sort of wrangled by us.
Mm.
It doesn't sound very complicated, but it's and it isn't, at least to understand.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to do primarily because we now one of the biggest responsibilities we have. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons I was brought onto the team is because we want to do this for all platforms. Anything with a screen we want to be on, whether it's your console, whether it's your PC, whether it's your mobile phone.
Mm-hmm.
These three verticals, like PC was the only vertical that Riot worked with till like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But now we want to be on everything. So we've invested a lot of time in creating SDKs for every single conceivable platform. Like right now, again, I'm not going to talk about this. No, this I cannot talk about. So, but let's just say that we are exploring how to get onto every single platform,
Very cool.
and that's part of our vision.
Mm.
So yeah.
Very interesting. Cool.
So just like getting onto mobile was not easy because
Oh yeah.
uh, like there is no launcher on mobile.
Right.
Like you can't install Riot client and then Riot client launches your
Right.
game.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the way we make things available, we make like your username and password and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff available on mobile is very different from the way it's made available on PC.
Yeah.
So all of these things just sort of like what's the word? We have to handle them,
Yeah. I
and
can
that's really what our team does.
I can imagine when you were mentioning about mobile, I can definitely see where it's difficult because iPhone and Android work slightly differently platform-wise, I imagine. So the challenges must be tremendous
Oh
to really get through
yeah,
those walls and
yeah,
stuff that they've got.
yeah, dude. So it's like one of the greatest technical challenges was that TFT is a League game, but the League engine was never available on mobile.
Mm.
So they figured out how to get the League engine onto mobile, which is
Oh,
not easy.
yeah.
That's like, yeah, that's literally like taking a PC game and like that's like taking an arcade game and putting it on the Game Boy. Like that's not easy. So
Yeah.
they that's the kind of work that our team has to do, and it's a lot
Mm.
of fun.
Yeah.
So
Very cool.
and
I have one question here. This is from Redtail, and he asks, "Is it like what we call in the PC Active Directory login, like single sign-on, when you're talking about how people sign into your
but
uh,
uh well, no, because Active Directory is like it's a very enterprise thing. Like your Riot account is not an enterprise. No, it's not
yeah.
Active Directory. It's like our own system.
Mm.
So no, but we are, for example, we are changing the way we do usernames because earlier it was just a summoner name,
Yeah.
but now it has to be a little more sophisticated because we want to be able to, like how Steam does it. We want to make it more flexible. So
Yeah.
that's also something that we are investing effort into.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But going a little bit back here, so we were there's some points here about like breaking the mold and from fan to creator. So let's kind of talk a little bit about that if we haven't already. We've talked about so much. It's been such a wealth of information, but I don't know if there's anything else we need to like. If there were some points we missed or any other, do we talk about this section or we kind of talk about everything here?
Well, I feel like I should make like call out some of the resources that I've used over the years.
Yeah.
So I feel like Warren Spector, who's one of the greatest game designers ever, he he sort of created the idea, at least in the on the Western side. He created the idea of choice and consequence within video games.
Yeah.
How problems, so he changed the way we articulate puzzles in video games. He's like, you can't just have puzzles for the sake of having puzzles. Like you're not in a maze and you're trying to find your way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a real world, and you have to like sort of rely on your ingenuity. Now what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
So he created the Deus Ex franchise.
Mm.
And what is special about Deus Ex is that it was the first game that sort of gave you multiple paths to solve the same problem. Like you can
Yeah.
either sneak into the vents, or you can, go in guns blazing. You
Mm-hmm.
can cloak and walk through. So he created what is essentially, in many ways, is like non-linear gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
So he does a series. He has a series on YouTube where he interviews creators of different games,
Mm-hmm.
like Harvey Smith, the creator of Dishonored, Thief. He's like a personal friend.
Oh
Richard
wow.
Garriott, who created the first MMO,
Uh-huh.
Ultima Online. He has spoken with this guy. Then Tim Willits, who I still think works at id Software and has worked on every single, like one of the creators of the first person shooter. He has spoken with, what's his name? With Warren Spector.
Mm.
So, and it's also like literally the coolest name in the world, Warren Spector.
Yeah, very
So
cool.
I think if you want to learn about, if you just want to take like a more, what is it? There's a show called Inside the Actors Studio on the Bravo network where they interview very many fantastic actors over the years,
Mm-hmm.
and each of those actors talk about the different roles. They talk about their personal lives. It's a very enriching sort of walk through their life.
Mm-hmm.
Warren Spector has done the same thing for video games,
Hmm.
and I would highly recommend people watch this.
Interesting.
Uh, And apart from that, if you want to learn software development, it's only getting easier now.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in undergraduate school, our teachers would talk about software development in a vacuum. Like it was taught like how you're taught high school math. Like you have seven melons, I take away three. How many melons do you have left? It's very like rudimentary. It's not contextual.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of like Coursera and edX are two of my favorite websites for learning how to do software development. So for example, I was talking to an Indian kid who lives in a small town in India, and he again got in touch with me through the same thread Grid got in touch with me with,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, "Hey, you work at Riot. How did you get there?"
Mm-hmm.
So when someone is so young, like they're 18, 19, what they need to worry about right now is getting the basics down.
Yeah.
So Coursera and edX do a phenomenal job of giving you the resources, giving you like MIT, Princeton, like universities that people pay tens of thousands of dollars to, like hundred, like you'll end up like in 100 grand debt if you
Mm-hmm.
go to actual Princeton. But these online courses are available for free,
Mm-hmm.
and they teach you software development the way you would learn it if you actually attended Princeton or attended MIT.
Nice.
So the quality, like one of my here's a flavor of what I got out of one of those courses. There's a course called Introduction to Computer Science, and it's taught in Python by a professor from MIT. And he was like, computers are not capable of reasoning, but they're capable of executing instructions very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't even measure instructions in terms of hundreds or thousands. We measure them in millions.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a fun fact. You know that rabbit you catch in Super Mario 64?
Uh-huh.
You know who I'm talking
I
about in the
I don't know if
basement?
I don't know if I've ever I played part of Mario 64, I think, but not the whole thing. I had it like
So
I played it part of a friend's
so
house once.
so anyway, so in Mario 64 there's a rabbit that runs around in the basement and you can catch him and you get a power star.
Huh.
That rabbit is called MIPS. MIPS stands for million instructions per second.
Oh, okay.
So computers, they've had like gigahertz, megahertz. MIPS was also one way to measure how fast a computer is.
Hmm.
So he was like, we measure instructions in terms of millions,
Mm-hmm.
billions. So he's like, how fast is a computer actually?
Mm-hmm.
So he says, okay, if I go up, a modern computer is this fast. If I go to my light switch and I turn it on, the amount of time it takes for the current to get to the light switch
Mm-hmm.
and for the bulb to turn on, a computer has executed like three instructions.
Mm-hmm.
That's how fast it is. So it's three times faster than the current that goes to your bulb.
Yeah.
And this was many years ago. This is like 5, 6 years ago. So maybe it's like 15 instructions now in that fraction of time.
Yeah.
So they give you these very beautiful sort of parallels to really understand what technology is and what it's capable of, what it's good at. It lets you.
Yeah.
So these questions of, oh, is my data safe?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is this a good way or a responsible way to use technology? Um, it sort of covers that awareness really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I would recommend, just in general, anybody who's interested in learning to invest in learning from these platforms because their resources are phenomenal. It's very affordable,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a great way. So it's like, in my document I've written, start with YouTube, end with Coursera edX. So figure out what you're passionate about. If it's music, there's actually a course by, I remember wanting to do this when I was like exploring what I'm interested in. There's a course that teaches you how to write lyrics. And the person who conducts the course is like a professional lyricist,
Mm-hmm.
and he talks about what he goes through in his like process when he's say
Mm-hmm.
writing a love song, and all of this is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's phenomenal in terms of just what is available to you now.
Mm-hmm.
And I would recommend people explore this. It's really good.
Mm.
And that's like if you want to learn, like there's on edX, I remember because game development is such a thing now, people are so that is their context for software now.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's either game development or mobile development. Very
Mm-hmm.
rarely do people actually go for desktop development or console development. They look at okay, mobile is cool and games are cool. So and web development is cool. These are like the three prominent verticals these days.
Mm.
So you have, if you go to edX, I was like pleasantly surprised to see that they offer specialization. So it's like you take a general computer science course with them, and then you can do a specialization either gaming, web, or mobile. If you're like super adventurous, maybe you can do all three. But pick one, run with it, learn something, and that's a great place to start. In fact, when people are interviewing, I recommend these resources to them, depending on what their uh, what their skill level and how much time they have.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend them chewing through one of these, just even if it's just watching the videos,
Yeah.
because it's a phenomenal way to prepare
Yes.
for uh, for the software industry, at least from an engineering point of view. And I reiterate, it's okay if you don't if your first job is not a game developer job, even if your first job is Geek Squad,
Yeah.
that is a stepping stone towards your next big success.
Definitely.
Never, don't stop pushing forward. That's really really important.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. We had a question in chat, and Snow Queen had asked
Yes.
about where do you think games are going to go beyond 3D now up to this point with all the because we have AR,
uh,
XR, VR. I mean that's a loaded
uh-huh.
question, I know, but what if you could
Well,
summarize the answer? What do you think it could go?
oh, that's such a great question. It really, I feel like the frontiers of VR and are being explored at Facebook. Facebook is really investing a lot of money into that.
Mm-hmm.
It's why they acquired Oculus.
Mm-hmm.
It's here's a fun tidbit. I actually interviewed with their VR team, and they have teams dedicated to figuring out how can we make VR accessible. Like
Mm.
these are product designers who've been grinding on this problem for a decade. And John
Amazing.
Carmack was really the guy who made the Doom engine, the guy
Mm-hmm.
who figured out how to do games on PC. Like till John Carmack, PC games were point and click adventure and educational games. He's the guy who figured out how to do like smooth scrolling
Mm.
he was the one who figured out how to do graphics on a chip that is not supposed to do graphics.
Wow.
That's there's a joke where people are like, I think John Romero said this is like it's a miracle that Carmack chose to do like game development because he could like cure cancer with that brain of his. But I don't
Wow.
know why he chose to do game development. So
Yeah.
Carmack is that smart. Like he's
Wow.
he's a
That's cool.
genius. So and in fact he tried to do VR in the early 90s.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There are like that's when the Virtual Boy and round about that time period, Carmack also took a shot at VR then, but it did not work out because compute and graphics were not good enough.
Right.
We were not there with 3D yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I also when I interviewed with a mobile gaming company many years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a conversation about the future of gaming, and the creative director's notion or his vision for the future in gaming was augmented reality,
Mm.
which makes a lot of sense because it's far more accessible
Mm-hmm.
than VR. It's a lot cheaper. It doesn't cost a lot to have a webcam with some software running on it.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of penetration, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Yes.
All of these technologies have some level of penetration and some audience right now. AR and mobile are probably the biggest markets right now.
Yeah. And
Like
I
Japan. Like, here's an interesting thing that Sony has done recently.
go
Sony
for it.
has effectively focused all their efforts into the American market because they make dedicated game systems.
Wow.
They do not like they make like consoles, which is not a big thing in Japan anymore because Japan is a very small country with very small houses.
Hmm.
Here, a fun fact is a friend of mine who went to Japan told me that a lot of people don't even own computers there. They have a computer at work, maybe they have a computer at in the computer lab at school, but they don't own a personal computer.
Mm-hmm.
They just own cell phones. So
Wow.
mobile is that big and that relevant in Japan
That's
that
amazing.
they don't need console. Like, that is why Nintendo Switch is such a brilliant product
Yeah.
because it brings gaming, it brings like console fidelity to mobile for the first time properly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, Microsoft is investing in streaming.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, you don't even have to own anything. You just have to own a controller, and you can stream Project X Cloud to your Android phone. You can
Mm-hmm.
stream it to your PC. You can stream it to your iPhone. Anything.
Yeah. And you have Google
Switch.
Stadia and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Google Stadia is I don't know, the health of that product is a little poor right now, but cloud gaming also, like if you want to play Resident Evil 7, you can play it on your Switch through cloud streaming. They
Wow.
have a proprietary solution for that.
That's amazing.
So so the answer to your question is that each technology is relevant. Each technology, the only barrier is accessibility, really. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that is why the PlayStation VR headset is such a fantastic thing, because they have the manpower and the sort of excellence to make that a mainstream thing. In fact, I think PlayStation 5, the VR headset that's going to ship with PlayStation 5 is going to be awesome because it's only going to have one cable that connects to the headset to the PlayStation, and that's it. You don't have to worry about setting up a million sensors because now they have something called inside out tracking where all the
Mm-hmm.
sensors are in the headset.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
So the new Oculus ships with inside out tracking,
Yeah.
and hopefully the price will be like $400.
Yeah.
Maybe in 10 years the price of a good VR headset will be $200. But then, economics is very interesting because they're like, we know that there's a dedicated base of 5,000 people who are willing to buy this, and they don't care about how expensive it is.
Mm-hmm.
So do we charge 10% more than it costs us to bring this to them, or do we charge 100%? Because
Mm-hmm.
if we charge 100%, they're still going to buy it, and it's still going to you know service their need. So it's like a Ferrari, right? It's that when you get into that territory of luxury or that territory of product, it's like the Neo Geo that we spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to products that are that expensive,
Mm-hmm.
the funny thing is the price ceases to matter. It's more about what they're delivering.
Yeah. The
And it's
quality
more
outweighs
about
the price. Yeah.
yeah, it's more about a no compromises experience.
Right.
So, for example, Nintendo, that is not what is important to them. For Nintendo, what is important is they make money on their hardware. They're the
Yeah.
only company that makes money on their hardware. They're selling you a tablet which costs $25 if you buy it without the Nintendo sticker on it.
That's crazy.
So, so their money comes from the quality and the quality of the software and
Mm-hmm.
the fact that they they can charge you whatever they want for their hardware and you'll buy it because you know.
What you're
I
getting, yeah.
remember, I remember back in college, somebody told me that this is when the iPhone 4S came out. So this should
Oh.
date me. So this is like 2012. This is shortly after Steve Jobs passed away. He told me that Apple makes $500 on every iPhone that they sell.
Wow.
That is the price of quality.
Wow.
So
Crazy.
so
Um,
yeah.
and I think kind of like to sort of, I think I'll call this a follow-up question. Do you think that at some point, much like the Star Trek of holograms, where they had all the, they were in whole worlds of space, do you think that games will get into that realm where they're projected around you and you're actually physically in the world and you're basically holographic technology being into the real space? We
So
have all the AR and everything like that.
So I did a lot of experimental tech when I was working in automotive. Like we were doing gesture tracking and all. That's one level of holograms, which is essentially you're tracking spatial movement.
Mm-hmm.
That has already been done. But now all you're doing is you're projecting something in 3D. You have a 3D projector
Mm-hmm.
that's sort of responding to touch input like air movement, which is already sort of a solved problem. Um, yeah, dude, crazy things. People like holograms and all have already been done. It's just a question of can we create something that is affordable and accessible. It's
Yeah.
like you could build a flying car, but you would need a flying policeman. You would need flying driving schools.
Yeah.
You would need all of this infrastructure, and a lot of things have to sort of catch up. Like
Yeah.
when you become a software developer, you realize the problem is not being able to do something. The problem is doing something at scale. Like
Mm.
it's easy for us to build a VR headset, but can we sell it to everybody? Can we sell it? Can we make it for cheap and sell it for high?
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of logistical problems. There are a lot of problems outside of the actual technology. The
Mm-hmm.
technology is like the heart, but there's an entire human body associated with that heart that also needs to be capable of supporting that heart and vice versa.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Wow, we've covered quite a lot of stuff. I don't really think anything more to cover or any extra details because I think I've kind of had some really good some fantastic material has been said here and stuff. Unless anybody's else in the chat, but we could I guess try to wind it down and transition to
So,
something else here, or unless you got something in mind.
well, I've not really touched on uh, where I started with game development
Oh,
and
okay.
where
Oh,
I
I'm so
think
sorry.
we should start.
We've covered so
And
sorry. We covered so much.
yeah, that's okay. So anyway, I'm just reading the questions. With the schools and training courses of study you mentioned, would it be possible to later get a resource list? The answer to that question is very simple. The list already exists. Just Google it. Go to Coursera, go to edX. I There's a fine line between being spoon-fed something and discovering it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like at some point I stop enabling people and I start like just telling them what to do,
Mm-hmm.
which is not healthy. It's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the call to action should be that nobody told me about these things. I just found them.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're capable of doing the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you could probably do it better than me because you have better internet, you have better technology, you have more exposure. There's a there's a song, right? What a wonderful world.
Mm-hmm.
There's the singer says, I see babies crying, I watch them grow. They'll know so much more than I'll ever know.
Mm-hmm.
And I sing to myself, what a wonderful world. And I'm
Indeed.
obviously like I've butchered the lyrics, but the
Yeah. Yeah.
gist
Yeah.
of the idea is that everybody who is even a year younger than you
Mm-hmm.
has the opportunities are manifold greater for them. So
Mm-hmm.
if I've told you these things, you shouldn't need anything more than this because I had lesser than this and I was able to find my way, and I'm sure you will too.
Yeah.
Will video games become something where the game itself is projected into your living space?
Yeah.
That's essentially what augmented reality is. Uh, and the Microsoft experimented with a product called HoloLens,
Yes, I
and
remember that. Yeah.
there is a product called there is this entire realm of development called mixed reality, and this may not be relevant within games, but it's definitely relevant within manufacturing. So I know somebody who works at Larsen and Toubro, which is like a company that does industrial machines.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to keep the factory floor safe, they use mixed reality all the time. So you have like a headset that could, this is all theoretical, this is all conjecture. I don't know if they actually do this. That could actually, like, you could look at a machine and it will tell you the health of that machine, whether it needs a service,
Oh,
etc., etc.
wow.
They use augmented reality in Formula One to like. So here's a good example in cricket. The let's not even go to cricket. Let's look at your personal fitness. Your Fitbit is technically augmented reality because it's tracking you, it's tracking where you run. You can buy these things called pelotons,
Mm-hmm.
which these bicycles which can
Right.
simulate entire experiences for you.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I mean, in the very broad sense, this is augmented reality. So, and these experiences are projecting themselves into the living world.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that is, it's happening in, so it's such a broad creative concept, like even gesture recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did this experiment with my boss called sensor fusion, where we were controlling entire displays based on what we are looking at,
Oh, wow.
what our hand, where our hand is, what we are saying. So this is essentially a gestalt of many technologies. So yes,
That's
it's
incredible.
and now I feel like we're not really talking about games. We're just talking about what is possible with technology, and the answer is get a good get good, expose yourself to the opportunities to do crazy stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
these answers have to be experienced. They can't be
Mm-hmm.
given. They just have to be experienced.
For
And
sure.
the first time I heard someone speak at length about technology and what it's capable of is Bill Gates. Like,
Mm.
if you just look up Bill Gates and hear him talk, you will immediately understand why he is one of the wealthiest men in the world. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even Elon Musk, much as he's controversial, when you hear him talk about what he envisions, you can see that there is a kernel of brilliance, of real brilliance behind him.
Yeah.
Like, people, I feel like this is the biggest mistake that the common person will make, is they will focus on the fluff. Like, they
Mm.
will focus on Elon Musk pumping and dumping stocks, which is not a good thing to do, in my opinion. It's quite controversial. So I would say set aside the controversy. Like, people have like hated on me for liking Michael Jackson, for example. Now there is a narrative around how Michael Jackson is this shady creep. But
Mm-hmm.
I choose to ignore that about him, because for me what is relevant is that he changed the way we consume music. He was the
Mm.
creator of the modern musician.
Right. Yeah.
Before him, a musician was just somebody who sang and
Mm-hmm.
maybe danced.
Yeah.
He turned the musician into a persona, into this legendary, like, larger than life figure who can like change the cultural sort of ethos, to just do all kinds of crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
So I hold that's what I consider important. So
Yeah.
it's important for you to be able to set aside that perspective, that dimension of any human being,
For
if
sure.
you want to sort of absorb what is good from them. Like, I worked with a lot of people who are probably not the best people, but I've
Mm-hmm.
learned from them because there was something about them that made them special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So,
And would fellow players be able to project themselves into your living room? Yeah, Facebook is already making a product like that. You can look it up.
oh wow, very
So,
cool.
so yeah, this is why I like to say if you're running into a problem, Google it because it's very likely someone has already solved it.
Yeah,
So
definitely. A lot of my greatest technical feats were solved by either watching YouTube or Googling something. Actually, like on my parents will see some of the things I've done on stream, and they'll be like, "Where did you learn all this?" I said, "Just typed in Google." Like that's slowly all it is, you know. It's amazing what the internet has allowed us to like
Mhm.
learn and get a hold of. You know, information is so much easier to get a hold of now. It's
the
amazing.
the biggest problem is people having that mental block of not wanting of not having that muscle of wanting to look things up. Like when I was in high school, when I was in college even, so this is like 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
there were kids who would have these expensive smartphones and they would never like do anything with it apart from like show off that they have expensive smartphones.
Yep, I remember
I'm
the
like,
yep.
where is the enrichment? Like, don't you realize that you have in your hand a key to the universe?
Yeah,
So
you
I
do.
feel like you are your biggest obstruction most of the time. So if you have a problem, you have to have a solution mindset for it. Like, how can I solve this problem? And you have to be
Mm-hmm.
like receptive and all this. So now again, we're delving into like attitude and all that other stuff. So to sort of talk about technologies that I think are important.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a game developer, learn Unity and C Sharp. It is the best game engine to work with today.
Hmm.
It allows you to put whatever you have made
Mm-hmm.
onto literally everything.
Mm.
Like you can even make games for a smart television, should it tickle your fancy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Spend time figuring out what you are good at. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're good at engineering, then learn Unity C Sharp. If you're good at art and design, learn Unity C Sharp. If you are good at music, learn Unity C Sharp. And I'm not joking here. There's a reason because um, the ability to interface with popular technology is a big part of being job worthy or being job ready.
Mm-hmm.
Like sure, you can make a mesh in Maya or 3D, or you can paint or draw on a piece of paper. But can you pull that into Unity? Can you make that animate? Can you make
Mm-hmm.
it do something?
Mm-hmm.
So it's important for everybody to try and do all of those things. Like
Yeah.
I have worked with sprite sheets, I worked with 3D animation, I've worked with 2D UI, I've done all of it because it's important to be able to put all of those pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you want to learn how to write cool shaders or cool. A shader is something that adds a cool special effect to your image. So, for example, I could take my picture and run like say when you open Snapchat and you can put a filter
Mm-hmm.
on your picture, that's effectively a shader.
Mm-hmm.
So you can learn how to write shaders. Shader tech art is a big, big, big venue. Like everybody wants a good technical artist, someone who can create special effects. I worked with somebody who does like murals, and he's worked on the Avengers and stuff, and he's done like VFX for them. So he's pretty cool. So a tech artist can also do like I remember when I was in college, someone did tech art where she wrote a script in Maya where she can model a building and she can run a destruction simulation on it, and it will actually like fall to pieces,
Oh
and
wow.
it will generate a ruin for you.
Oh wow. That's amazing.
So that is the kind of cool stuff you can do. So no matter what, we keep saying the same thing over and over.
We do.
If you have any kind of creative inclination, see how you can use technology to enhance it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's through live streaming, whether it's through writing code, and you can just like put all of these things together and really shine as a human being.
Definitely.
So yeah,
Good
Unity
stuff.
C Sharp. And if I had to recommend a goal for everybody to have if they want to get into game development, build a game on Unity in Unity, see if you can get it onto the App Store or get it onto the Android Store. See if you can do the same game and have the same experience on PC, web,
Mm-hmm.
mobile.
Yeah.
Because that exercise is what everybody wants in production today, in real world game development.
Mm.
Everybody wants to be able to take a game that they've made and put it on every platform. Like
Mm-hmm.
look at Riot. We want to put our games everywhere now.
Mm.
Do you guys know about Wild Rift?
Yeah, I've been waiting for it to come to NA. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
keeping an eye on
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Wild Rift is the League experience available on
Yes.
mobile. In fact, I've actually been working on Wild Rift, and it's been very exciting because we're collaborating with teams across the world.
Wow. That's
And
cool.
we have some developers in America, some developers in China, and then there's the time zone problem. They're like, oh shit,
Yeah.
we have a bug, and then you have to sit and fix it. Then you
Yeah.
have like, oh no, we need you to make this code available on an older release. So there's a lot
Oh
of fun happening
goodness.
there.
The
Then there's
challenges.
also, oh, the other fun part about working or being successful. So yeah, it's been good.
Very cool.
Uh, uh, Chai, is there any more work being done to help the physical and the mentally handicapped, including blind and deaf people, to use computer games to help them improve their capabilities and feel that they are adding their own value to their own lives?
Yeah.
Also, are
So
there
game.
games available in Native American languages? Uh, Localized. So the answer to all these questions is yes. The problem is that this is not. I feel like enough work is not being done. Um, there's this, for example, I find it very like there's one game that I think is very contentious, which is Dark Souls. Right?
Mm.
Dark Souls is a phenomenal game that I will never be able to play because I am incapable of playing a game that difficult.
Mm.
But then on one side you have these super fans who are like, you suck, get better,
Yeah.
get good. That's the genesis of get good, right?
Yeah.
But on the other side, you have games like The Last of Us 2, which I think The Last of Us 2 has ASL in it. It also has great colorblind filters.
Mm-hmm.
It also I think you can, if you're blind, you can play The Last of Us 2.
Huh.
So they've done some, like, I could be horribly wrong because I remember like Last of Us was just shrouded in so much controversy that
Mm-hmm.
these excellent things just sort of got like overshadowed. Like, let's set aside whether you actually like the game or not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I personally don't like the Last of Us series. I think it's
No.
too depressing,
Yeah.
and I'm like, no, this is not for me.
Yeah.
But setting aside all of that, they've done some excellent work with
Mm-hmm.
accessibility.
Yes. Accessibility is something
I
yeah, it's
I and let's talk about difficulty. Difficulty in games is also a big reason why people stop playing games.
mm-hmm.
So it's not just about being deaf or blind, it's also genuine capability. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason this is happening is because people are getting older. Game developers are getting older.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, my reflexes aren't as good as a 13-year-old. I can't react like a fly anymore. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to have a slider that lets me set the damage down to 20%.
Yeah.
I beat Control only after they patched in those sliders.
Oh wow.
Last of Us 2 ships with a journalist mode or an assisted mode, which is like super easy, where you cannot get detected if you're in the grass. So
Interesting.
accessibility, the biggest flavor of accessibility has to be the difficulty settings. If you
Yeah.
can do difficulty properly in your games, you're doing your player base a service.
Yes, and I can actually kind of talk to some of this a little bit because I've played when Shadow of the Tomb Raider released, one of the biggest things that people complained about was that the climbing walls had what was called the white paint, and everybody
Correct.
hated the white paint because it just destroyed the environment. So when Shadow came out, they had an ability to turn off the white paint, which I like was happy about, because it's like I want it to be somewhat difficult, but I don't want to be like handheld through this game. I want to like think about, is that climbable? Can I do this? You know?
Yeah. And me, on the other hand, I look at the white paint. I'm like, huh, what a good game design. What a good game design feature.
Yeah,
It
no, for
makes
sure.
it creates a very clear visual cue about what can be interacted and cannot be interacted with.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another game that does this. In fact, in a lot of in Deus Ex, when you highlight something, it highlights a certain color of yellow. So as a joke, the developers just whenever you would go into a storeroom in the game, you would see cans of yellow paint lying everywhere.
Mm.
So so there that this is, if you listen to the developer commentary, you learn about these funny things.
Very
And
nice.
they often use light. Like, I mean, to that
Mm.
end, you can argue that all like guidance is like is damaging to immersion, because when you play certain games, they light certain things up, or they set up
Mm-hmm.
the environment in a certain thing so that you can see exactly what your target is.
Mm-hmm.
So you can criticize, you can be like, oh wow, what a great way for them to communicate something to me without telling me, but
Mm-hmm.
showing me. Or you can be like, oh, this is not realistic.
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
feel like accessibility, also the Native American languages. I am not aware of any games that have Native American protagonists. I could be entirely wrong.
Interesting.
So yeah, the answer to that is, if it doesn't exist, make it. And I'm sure if you do a good job, people will respond to it. Like nowadays, it's really good that a lot of protagonists are now female.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of games, they're actually the female protagonist is adding a dimension of experience to the game that would not have been present otherwise.
Mm. Yeah,
There are
definitely.
games that have people of color as protagonists. That is also awesome. There are games that are exploring gender, being trans,
Mm-hmm.
which is also fantastic. So I feel like this is where we come back to, can a computer make you cry? Is can it create empathy within you? Can it make you introspect?
Yeah.
Can it evoke within you an emotion you didn't know existed?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to really emphasize representation.
Understandable. Yeah. Interesting. Um, so yeah, I think we were trying to get around to you breaking into this industry. I think we've been trying to get into that, and then there's been a lot of really great questions, which we thank you guys for all the awesome questions and stuff. So let's go ahead
Yeah.
and cover that and then start winding this down, I think.
Yeah. So I think I've said everything I needed to say. I think we're good.
Okay.
So I will conclude by showing a little more Riot swag.
All right.
Uh, so I would say this is really sweet. So they sent us a bunch of badges.
Mm-hmm.
If you can see, it's called the Work from Home collection.
Mm-hmm.
And during our work from home, a lot of our communication has been what's the word?
Work from home, like remote work,
Yes,
basically.
it's been
Yeah.
remote. So a lot of these like badges have been a part of that communication. So this one is really cool because this one is, I think it's called Poro. And
Uh-huh.
whenever we have any technical difficulties in the live stream, we have a sweating Poro tapping really hard on a computer, and we have this music. We have like a special soundtrack for him, and
Nice.
everybody just vibes to it. It's like a lot of fun. Then
Nice. Very
there's
cool.
this guy who's he's our confidential. I forget, like he's got a name, but this guy is essentially our secret wizard. is if you're
Ah,
talking about something that's confidential, you have to keep it secret, keep it safe.
yeah, yeah,
This is a burrito mic.
yeah. Very cool.
And finally, we have a COVID mask.
Ah, nice.
So yeah, it's been an interesting year. 2020 was
Yeah, I was about
fun.
to say, hopefully everybody's, been able to get work done from working from home because, the obviously environment's different. You guys aren't in the same office. Imagine it's a little bit, there's some challenges to overcome.
Yeah. Well, again, I say that every problem is an opportunity to do good.
Mm.
So if you're stuck at home, see what you can do to enrich your life.
Mm-hmm.
See what you can learn. Because when lockdown happened, I was secretly very happy because I had no time to myself. I was spending too much time commuting. So when
Gotcha.
lockdown happened, I'm like, oh, I can wake up at 9 a.m. now. So,
Very cool.
there are pros and cons to every situation. I feel
Yeah.
like there are more cons in this situation than there are pros. But it's a good mental place to be in if you always
Mm-hmm.
emphasize on how a situation can enrich you rather
Yeah.
than. So if you're stuck at home, learn something. If
Mm-hmm.
you're stuck at home, like I learned how to cook after so many years. I am inheriting a legacy of recipes from my mom.
Very cool.
And I was raised eating this delicious Indian food which I have been deprived of for the last 10 years
Nice.
after. But now I have it again because lockdown was like, I'm sick of eating Chipotle. I need real food. Also, when you go to work, most large companies cater now.
Mm.
So, like Riot's food is supposed to be really good, which is something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so take this opportunity to learn things that you've not learned.
Yeah.
Grow. Like there is always a reason to not be happy, but there is always a reason to be happy as well. So find that reason to be happy and run with it.
Very
It's
cool.
really
Awesome.
okay. I
Well,
think with that we've. I think
covered
I've
quite a lot.
exhausted. I've exhausted all possible
Well, thank you again.
items of conversation.
Thank you, Chaitanya, for sharing, so much of it and giving us some of your time and everything. I
No
guess
problem.
I'll probably transition, I guess, to playing something on stream a little bit. But yeah, so I guess if people wanted to contact you or like if can people find you on LinkedIn? Do you have any like social people want to find out more about like you or your field of
Uh,
work or how do you?
yeah, just LinkedIn is probably. I like to keep this like. I'm not one of the Facebook, Twitter kind of guys.
Mm.
I also feel like I feel like oddly vulnerable after doing this because I'm like, oh shit, what if somebody finds this someday and be like, hey, you said something wrong here and we're gonna
Oh,
cancel
okay, okay,
you.
that's fair.
So I'm terrified of that. But LinkedIn is perfectly okay. And yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to speak about the professional challenges and the professional sort of journey around games. And I'm always on the fence about whether I want to do the streaming thing, but I mean I feel like it's too much of a time commitment, and I want to like not be plugged in 24/7.
Understandable. Yeah. Well,
But yeah,
cool. All
LinkedIn is
right.
good.
All right. Well, sounds
Feel
good.
free to share like my LinkedIn this thing with your chat, like my LinkedIn permalink.
Sure. I'll go ahead and pull that up real quick. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being a part of the stream. Here's his link if you guys want to go connect with him and stuff. But those of you who were watching via YouTube, as this would be posted to there, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, you can subscribe and comment below and stuff. But otherwise, thank you guys so much, and I will see you all soon.